Hello, Yawning Angel back again with another Amiga video, and I'm talking about my Back in Black Amiga again. Link to the previous video up here where you see how I modify this machine and put the new case and keycaps on it. But the observant amongst you will notice that today it has a new device sitting atop it. Yes, I have fitted the GoDrive, and this video is going to be about how you do just that. But before I dive into that, there's probably some things you need to know. So, Yawning Angel, I hear you say, what is a GoDrive? Well, in essence, a GoDrive is like a very small Gotek drive. As we all know, Gotek drives enable us to read Amiga disk files, ADF files, from a USB stick. And Gotek drives usually replace our existing floppy drives. They'll go into your floppy drive bay, or they can sit externally. A GoDrive works in conjunction with an existing floppy drive, enabling you to switch between Gotek functionality and floppy disk functionality. So you can still use your existing floppy disks in your internal floppy drive, and you can read ADF files from a USB stick as well. There's a convenient switch on top of the GoDrive which enables us to flick between floppy and Gotek. Essentially, a GoDrive is a very small Gotek drive that sits on top of your Amiga. And this gives us the best of both worlds and is a fantastic solution if you still have a working internal floppy drive. So your next question is probably going to be, Yawning Angel, where do I get such a device? Well, I managed to get mine from Digital Retro Bay, and I'll put a link to their website in the description down below. I'm not being paid by them, I'm not being sponsored in any way. This is just where I managed to source my GoDrive from. Now, I will say instructions are available on their website on how to fit a GoDrive. Lots of words, lots of pictures, but I stumbled across a couple of issues, not their fault, more my fault, because once again, software guy, not hardware guy. So I thought I'd do this video and kind of explain my experience on fitting the GoDrive and a couple of gotchas to watch out for. But it's all here, it's all working, and as we progress through the video, you'll see it in action and it's all good. So you know how this works. Let's grab a cup of tea and get on with it. Here's my Amiga with the keyboard and the uppercase already removed because nobody needs to see that again. So the first thing to do then is to take out the power cable and the data cable from the existing internal floppy drive, because we need to insert almost like an interface board which will take power and signals to and from the existing floppy drive and to the GoDrive as well. As you can see here, my power cable for my internal floppy drive giving a lot of resistance here in terms of coming out, and I didn't want to damage the board, so I took my sweet time on this and also removed quite a lot of video footage. But here, finally, I got the power cable out, which was a huge relief. No damage done. Right, so that is now out. Good news. Next up then, just to remove the data ribbon from the floppy drive, once again taking care not to damage anything here, but this comes out really quite easily, no problems there. With the floppy drive disconnected and relevant cables out the way, we can now fit this little circuit board. This is the controller for the GoDrive. You're going to need to take off the plastic protection little bit here, which is protecting the power plug. Make sure you do remove that, otherwise you're going to be in for a devil of a job because it won't fit. So what this board does, it plugs into the data port and the power port as well, and it just slides straight in to both these ports at the same time. So you really need to take your time in doing this. Really be careful with what you're doing. This is why you need to get as many cables out the way as possible. I kind of wish that I'd taken the power cable out completely. So yeah, this is just me being careful here, but it does go in and it slides in quite nicely. But please, I stress here, make sure you've got all the pins lined up, especially on the data port side. But once that's in, that does fit in quite snugly. Once you're happy with everything, do just give it a final check. Just make sure it is in there snugly, because you don't want to come back and have to remove everything. But I'm happy my board is in there, so now we can move on to the next task. Next up is fitting the FFC cable. This is a data ribbon which will allow this circuit board to interface with the header unit. Do make sure you get this the right way round. Please observe which way I put it in here in this video. There are full instructions on the website for this as well. So it's just a case of just separating the clamp here, sliding it in. Make sure you've got the writing side of this facing away from you. That's quite important. So this just slides in and clamps in just pretty much like the keyboard ribbon connector as well. So there's no real difficulty in getting this fitted. Now we can start to put everything back together. So we can reconnect the data cable for the floppy drive. Once again, take care in what you're doing here. Do take your time, because now we've got this extra quite sensitive data cable in there. So we don't want to be damaging that. So do take your time when doing this. Don't rush it. Also, top hint, don't do this on the hottest day of the year as well, when you've got hot, sweaty hands. I had to wash my hands a number of times when doing this to make sure they didn't slip. Next up, we can refit the floppy drive power cable. So this now fits on to the GoDrive board. Please make sure you fit it the right way round. Take a note of where your red cable is, where it goes. Once again, you don't want to be coming back to this or making a mistake here. So it's really important you get this round the right way. I checked and double checked this to make sure it fitted correctly and in the right place. So as you can see here, I just needed to twist my cable just so I had the power. The red lead is at the bottom from the socket here, and then as it goes over to the floppy drive, it's at the top part. I didn't take a picture of this before I started, and I didn't think to look back on the video footage, so I just really needed to be ultra careful in how I fitted this back. I just wanted to make sure it was right. Next up, we can fit the keyboard and get the top shell back on. But also what you need to take into account now is you need to feed that FFC cable through the top vents on the A1200 upper shell. And I think I chose either the 5th or the 6th slot to slide that through. In doing this, you need to be very careful when trying to fit the upper shell back on, because now you've got this extra cable that slides through the case, and you don't want to be damaging that in case you accidentally have the upper shell slip. I would strongly suggest having someone else help you do this, just to hold that in place while you're trying to do it, because you don't want the shell to drop and it to accidentally damage this cable. Right, this is where I made a mistake. I refitted the ribbon cable for the keyboard before feeding through the indicator lights cable, because forgetting that I've now got an extra cable sliding through the upper shell of the case, trying to move things around, it all got a bit messy, and I did actually have the upper shell slip while I was trying to do this, because I'm trying to keep everything in place at one time. This is not a good way of doing it. You really do need to do the indicator lights cable first and then attach your keyboard ribbon cable. Do not make the same mistake that I did. So I came at this again and I disconnected the keyboard ribbon cable, got the indicator light cable fitted, and then fitted the keyboard ribbon cable. This was very, very fiddly to do, because your indicator lights cable actually sits in front of your newly fitted GoDrive board, so it's a bit of a tight fit, but we got there eventually. So now it's just a case of making sure that cable, the FFC cable, is fed through nicely, and you tuck away the rest of your cables and you can reattach the upper shell. Now, without a doubt, comes the most difficult part to fit, the header for the GoDrive. So in this piece of video, it all looks quite simple. You just slide the FFC cable into the clamp underneath the actual header unit. I can tell you this took me so long to do. As I said, this was the hottest day of the year. My hands were very clammy and sweaty, and trying to get that cable to slide in horizontally, not vertically, into the clamp was a devil's own job to do. I didn't film all of it because it just took forever, but I finally got there, and it is just a massive sense of relief when you've finally done it. I literally, you really do need to take your time in doing this, and also make sure you've either got a magnifier or a good pair of glasses, because the gap is very small and quite fiddly to access. Right, so the Amiga is back in position. So monitor is on, so let's power the Amiga up. floppy drive. Yes, we've got words. Flash floppy plus 3.41 has appeared on the front of the GoDrive. The Amiga is booting off of hard drive. This is looking good. Yep. That's, oh, look at that. Yep, that's booted up nicely. Yes, well, I know my screen is offset. That's a job for another day. Right, so first off, will it accept a floppy drive? A floppy drive. Will it accept a floppy disk in the floppy drive? So I've got this set to F for floppy. So let's see what happens. It's reading off the floppy. There we go. Floppy disk has been recognized. Okay, so let me take that out. So now we're going to switch that over to GoTech, and I've got my USB key here. Pop that in, and it's actually found the last disk. Yeah, it has found stuff, and I can shuttle through. So let's see. So that's Workbench 3.2 ADF, and sure enough, there's Workbench 3.2 ADF. Brilliant. Jog that across Amiga Action issue 13 cover disk. Let's see what it does with this. Yeah, look at that. See, the floppy drive lights as well as the LED on there. And there is Amiga Action 13 cover disk, and that's reading off of USB via the GoTech there. Look at that. Wow. Nice, and we can shuttle through. I've got a load of rubbish on here, just stuff. Over time, we all just collect a list of floppies, don't we? Blank discs. Batman Rises demo. Yeah, so obviously that's got to be booted directly, but it is actually, yeah, look at that. It's reading perfectly. That is fantastic. Brilliant. So if I switch that back to floppy, yeah, so when you switch it back to floppy, you can hear the internal disk drive start to click again. So that's really nice. So when you've got that switch to GoTech, it actually seems to disable the click on the internal drive. Very nice feature. As again, just stick a floppy disk in the floppy drive again, and yeah, that's come up absolutely fine. So what happens if I switch to GoTech with a disk in the drive? What's it going to do? Interesting. It doesn't ignore that. So it's the floppy disk is obviously taking priority. So let me switch that back. Take a disk out of there. Now switch that. Yeah. So with a disk out of the drive and then switching over to the GoTech on the GoDrive, that then works for the USB. But if you've got a floppy disk in there, that's going to take priority by the looks of it. But you know, that's fine. That's not a problem. But that is working. That's working really nicely. Yeah, really happy with that. That is a result. Something I did want to mention about the functionality of the GoDrive when using it with a USB stick, an internal floppy disk, and or an external floppy drive. So let's take a quick look. So with this set to F for floppy, I can put a floppy disk in my internal drive, the Amiga reads it, and that disk appears on my desktop. Happy days, it's all there. So now if I switch to the GoDrive and select a disk, so my Amos Pro system disk, that should now come up, and that's being read off of the USB stick. All happy days, that's an ADF file on there, all good. For those who follow my videos quite regularly, this is going to be a thing in the next video, so subscribe to my channel if you want to see that. Right, but obviously, as you've noticed, the floppy drive that I had that was in my internal drive has vanished now. Obviously the physical disk is still there, but the Amiga is now just looking at one internal drive, that being the ADF file on this USB stick. I do have a floppy disk in my external disk drive, and I can read from that even though the GoDrive is set to GoTech mode, as it were. It still treats your external floppy drive as an external floppy drive. So you have this choice. GoDrive from reading from USB stick and your external floppy drive, or GoDrive set to floppy mode and that reads from your internal floppy disk and you can read from your external floppy drive as well. I hope that makes a bit of sense. And that is it for another video. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you've got something out of this and it has been of some use. I think this is a great little device and I love it to bits. Right, so there will be more videos coming on this channel. Obviously, back on the Amos trail, I really want to have a look at installing Amos Pro from scratch on a vanilla machine. So let's see how that pans out. That's going to be for the next video, all going well, fingers crossed. Thank you ever so much for watching. I've got a list of where I can be found online. That'll be down in the video description down below. But until the next video, whatever you do, look after yourselves and keep it retro.